The fluorescent lights of Meridian. Tech's open office floor buzzed like dying insects. Marcus Cole sat at his desk, the same desk he had occupied for 11 years, and stared at the termination letter that HR had placed in front of him 40 minutes ago. His hands were completely still, not because he was calm, but because he had learned, a long time ago, that stillness was the only armor a man like him could afford. Around him, the office continued like nothing had happened. Keyboards clicked. Coffee machines gurgled. Someone laughed at something on their screen. And 3 cubicles down, his manager, Derek Sutton, stood with 2 colleagues, speaking in a voice just loud enough to be heard. 11 years and the guy couldn't even fight back. Just sat there. Derek shook his head with a smirk. Guess that's what happens when you spend more time playing daddy than doing your job. The laughter that followed was quiet but deliberate, designed to reach Marcus, designed to land. It landed. Marcus picked up the termination letter, folded it once and placed it inside his jacket pocket. He stood up, took his daughter's photo from the desk, the only personal item he kept there, and walked toward the elevator without saying a single word to anyone. In the photo, Lily was 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, eyes the color of autumn leaves. She was holding a crayon drawing. She had made of the 2 of them a tall stick, figure with the words "My Daddy" written underneath in uneven, proud letters. She was 9 now, and Marcus was all she had. Her mother, Claire, had died from an aggressive form of leukemia 18 months ago. The medical bills had eaten through their savings like fire through paper. Marcus had taken every extra shift, every freelance contract, every opportunity Meridian Tech had offered, not for advancement, not for recognition, but to make sure Lily never felt the weight of what they had lost. To make sure she still had dance lessons on Saturdays. To make sure the lights stayed on and the refrigerator stayed full and she could fall asleep in a home that still felt like safety. And now Derek Sutton had decided that Marcus's 11 years of loyalty were worth less than the new restructuring plan that created room for Derek's college roommate to take his position. Marcus drove home in silence. No radio, no podcast, just the sound of the city around him and the quiet that had become his most constant companion since Claire left. Lily was at school. He had 4 hours before he needed to pick her up. He sat at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. He didn't panic. He didn't spiral. He simply opened every document he had ever saved, every email thread he had backed up to his personal drive, every internal report he had quietly archived over the past 2 years, because Marcus Cole, despite everything, had always paid attention. He had noticed the irregularities in Meridian's government contract billings. He had flagged them internally twice and been told both times to leave it alone. He had left it alone, but he had never deleted the evidence. He was not a vengeful man. He had not saved those files out of spite. He had saved them out of instinct, the same instinct that made him check the locks twice before bed and keep a first aid kit fully stocked and never let Lily's school bag leave the house without her asthma inhaler inside. He was a father. Preparation was not paranoia. It was love made practical. He spent 3 hours organizing everything into a clean, time-stamped file. Then he made 2 phone calls. The first was to an attorney named Sandra Park, who had been Claire's college roommate and had told Marcus, at Claire's funeral, to call her if he ever needed anything. He had never called, until now. The second call was to a journalist at the Chicago Tribune named James Whitfield, who had written an investigative piece on defense contractor fraud 2 years ago that Marcus had read and quietly saved. He did not call either of them out of anger. He called them because Derek Sutton had laughed at a man who was already on his knees and had mistaken grief for weakness and stillness for surrender. That was Derek's only real mistake, and it was a catastrophic one. The next morning, Marcus was standing at the kitchen counter making Lily's lunch when she came downstairs in her purple backpack, her hair in 2 uneven pigtails because she had insisted on doing it herself. "Daddy, are you okay?" she asked, climbing onto the kitchen stool and watching him with those autumn leaf eyes that saw too much for a 9-year-old. "I'm good, baby," he said. He placed her sandwich in the bag and turned to look at her directly, the way he always did when he wanted her to know he was being honest. "I lost my job yesterday." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Are we going to be okay?" "Yes," Marcus said, not because he was certain, but because uncertainty was his burden to carry, not hers. "We are absolutely going to be okay." She nodded. Accepting this, the way children accept things from parents they trust completely. Then she slid off the stool, picked up her backpack and said, "Can we still get waffles on Sunday?" "Every Sunday," Marcus said. "That's non-negotiable." She smiled, the gap-toothed one, the one that looked exactly like Claire's, and walked toward the front door. And that was the moment they arrived. 4 black SUVs rolled down the quiet residential street in perfect, unhurried formation and stopped in front of Marcus's house. The doors opened simultaneously. The men who stepped out were not police. They wore no uniforms. They were dressed in dark suits, and they moved with the specific, practiced stillness of people who operated in spaces that most people never see. Lily froze on the front porch. Marcus stepped out beside her immediately, placed one hand gently on her shoulder, and looked at the man walking up the front path, tall, silver-haired, carrying a leather folder. "Mr. Cole," the man said. "My name is Richard Hale. I'm with the Office of Inspector General, Federal Division. We've been investigating Meridian Technologies for 14 months. He paused. "We understand you may have documentation relevant to our case." Marcus looked at the 4 SUVs, looked at the men standing at careful distances, looked back at Richard Hale. "I made some phone calls yesterday," Marcus said. "Yes," Hale said. "Sandra Park contacted our office last night. James Whitfield contacted us this morning." A pause. "Mr. Cole, the files you've compiled, if they are what our preliminary review suggests, represent the clearest evidence of federal contract fraud we have encountered in this investigation." Lily tugged Marcus's sleeve. He looked down at her. "Go inside, sweetheart," he said quietly. "Watch TV. I'll be right in." "Are those the good guys or the bad guys?" she whispered. Marcus looked at Richard Hale for a long moment. "Good guys," he said. She went inside. The meeting lasted 2 hours at Marcus's kitchen table. What Richard Hale's team had been building circumstantially for 14 months. Marcus's archived documentation made concrete. Invoice manipulations, falsified delivery reports submitted to defense contractors, payments routed through subsidiary accounts that existed only on paper. Derek Sutton's name appeared throughout, not as the architect, but as the executor, the man who had made the fraud operational and who had fired Marcus. Hale confirmed quietly. "Because Marcus had been too close to the numbers for too long." "He didn't fire you because of restructuring," Hale said. "He fired you because you were a liability." Marcus sat with this for a moment. Then he said, "How long before this becomes public?" "Weeks," Hale said. "Not months." "It took 19 days. The indictments were unsealed on a Tuesday morning. Derek Sutton was arrested at Meridian Tech's headquarters at 9 a.m. 3 senior executives were arrested simultaneously at locations across the city. The story ran in the Tribune that afternoon under James Whitfield's byline, and by evening it had been picked up nationally. Marcus's name was not in any of the articles. He had requested this, and Hale had honored it. He was not interested in recognition. He was not interested in being a story. Sandra Park called him that evening. "Meridian's board is panicking," she said. "They want to settle. Wrongful termination, whistleblower protections, the full package. I'm going to get you enough to cover Lily's education and then some. And Marcus," she paused, "they're going to offer you your position back." "Tell them no," he said immediately. "To which part?" "The position. Tell them I don't want it." A brief silence. "What do you want?" Marcus looked across the living room, where Lily was lying on the carpet doing her homework, her feet in the air, her tongue pressed to the corner of her mouth the way it always was when she was concentrating, the same way Claire used to concentrate, the same unconscious inherited gesture that still stopped his breath sometimes. "I want enough to take care of my daughter," he said. "I want enough time to be her father properly. And I want them to know that they made a serious mistake, not when they fired me, but when they left." Sandra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'll make sure they know." The settlement came through 6 weeks later. Marcus did not discuss the amount publicly. What he did discuss in a single interview he agreed to give, not to a major network, not for television, but to a small independent journalist who covered labor rights, was something quieter. "I wasn't trying to be brave," he said. "I wasn't trying to be a whistleblower or a hero or any of that. I was trying to make sure my daughter had a father who hadn't completely disappeared. That's all I was doing." When they took the job, I had nothing left to lose professionally. But I still had her. And that meant I still had everything. The journalist asked him if he was angry at Derek Sutton. Marcus thought about this for a long time before he answered. No, he said finally. People who mock grieving fathers in office hallways, they're already carrying something broken inside them. I don't need to add to it. I just needed to make sure it didn't break my daughter, too. On the Sunday after the settlement cleared, Marcus and Lily sat in their regular booth at the diner 3 blocks from their house. Lily ordered waffles with strawberries. Marcus ordered black coffee and eggs. The morning light came through, the window at an angle that turned everything briefly gold. Lily was drawing on a napkin with a crayon she had pulled from her backpack. She always had crayons, always. In every bag she owned, a habit Marcus had never discouraged. He watched her draw without asking what it was. He had learned to wait. After a while, she slid the napkin across the table to him. It was the two of them again. The same composition as the drawing from years ago. Tall stick figure and a small one. But this time, Lily had drawn them standing in front of a house with a sun above it. And underneath the tall figure, in her careful, uneven letters, she had written not my daddy, but something different. She had written, the one who stayed. Marcus looked at the drawing for a long time, long enough that Lily noticed. Do you like it? She asked. He looked up at her, at the gap-toothed smile, at the autumn leaf ice, at the 9-year-old girl who had lost her mother and watched her father lose his job and had still, that very morning, asked only for waffles and Sunday and the ordinary, irreplaceable continuity of being loved. Yeah, baby, Marcus said. His voice was steady. His eyes were not. I like it a lot. He folded the napkin and placed it in his jacket pocket, the same pocket where, weeks ago, he had placed a termination letter from men who had looked at him and seen nothing worth keeping. They had been wrong about what he was protecting. They had always been wrong about that.